Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology. We're going to talk about a few things today. We are going to look at a situation where a group of nuns have become sedevacantist. That is, they claim that Pope Francis is no longer the Pope, and thus they are no longer in communion with the Catholic Church. Their bishop weighs in on it. He is in amazement. He is just in shock that they would make this choice. So we're going to take a look at that. Then I want to briefly review Michael Knowles' review of Pope Francis's 60-minute interview with 60 minutes. It's actually like a 43-minute interview with 60 minutes. And we're going to consider, is Michael Knowles becoming a Popesplainer? Hey, you know what? If he is, welcome indeed. We certainly need more. And I want to briefly take a look at some comments from this is from America Magazine that Father James Martin retweeted about Pope Francis. It is critical about Pope Francis in relation to him saying no to women deacons. I want to critique the criticism. So I want to critique a little bit of what I see America Magazine saying in response. And so that is what we are going to do today. However, before we dive in, I want to share my screen and show something to you that we need to fix right away, right now. The subscriber count on the channel is 98,666. And my OCD is not letting me let this go. We need to fix that, okay? It's at 666. You know, if it's at a 666 or a 616, depending on which textual variant on the Book of Revelation we are consulting. Okay, it was fixed. Bam! Somebody fixed it right there. I was going to say I need somebody to either sub or unsub, one of the two, preferably sub. But either way, we need to fix this. Oh, no, come on. Somebody unsubbed. Come on. No, fix it. Y'all need to fix it before we can continue the show. We need to fix this. Some of y'all are, oh, okay. All right. Somebody unsubbed and then they subbed again. Oh, man. Y'all are playing with me. Y'all keep doing this to me. We sub and then we unsub, then we unsub and then sub back. All right. Okay. All right. Somebody unsubbed. All right, that's better. That's better. I mean, it's in the wrong direction. It's in the wrong direction, but I'll take it. All right, now we can move forward with the show. But I will. Oh man, come on, seriously. I will need. I was gonna say I will need some people, like 2 people, to subscribe at the very least, so that we can help offset this. Are y'all serious? It's now at 666, 664. Okay. All right, some of y'all are unsubbing to fix the situation so we don't continue to endlessly have this problem. And then somebody goes and fixes the situation again, puts it back at 665. I'm telling you, oh, come on. Come on. All right. All right, I'm going to have to move forward. I'm going to have to put aside my OCD and just somehow, okay. That's a little bit better. It's in the wrong direction, but I'll take it. I'm going to have to close this out before. I was about to close it out, and then y'all did it again. Okay, that's better. That's better. 667. That's good. All right. I'm going to close it out. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're safe. All right, we're safe. I'm not going to look at it again. I'm not going to look at it. Just gonna walk away. All right, gonna walk away. It was bothering me. Now we are going to talk about this situation with the nuns. Jen says, behold Michael losing his sanity. It's hard not to lose your sanity when you have to see the things that I see every day and deal with the things that I have to deal with online. It's hard. It's really hard not to. So yeah. All right. Anyways, so community, this is, by the way, in Google Translation. So this was not written in English. So if it's a little awkward, that's why. Community of Poor Clares leaves the Catholic Church and joins a bishop excommunicated in 2019. Um, in fact, there is a CNA article that we will take a look at first before reading that one. This one gives us a little bit of a summary of what's going on here. Spain Archbishop on schismatic nuns. I don't know if they realize the profound consequences. This is the Archbishop reacting to their schism. Archbishop Mario Aikita, I guess is how you pronounce it. Aikita. I don't know, one of the two. Archdiocese of Burgos, Spain. He is just stunned that this is happening. Well, I've been warning you guys, bishops, I've been warning y'all, and I've been telling you, it seems like you're only going to become aware of it whenever it starts to happen within your diocese. Then you'll be aware of it, but then it will be too late. So that is why, bishops, y'all need to be watching Reason and Theology. Squeeze it into the schedule. I know y'all are busy. Archbishop Mario Aikita of Burgos, Spain, in whose jurisdiction is located the convent of the Poor Clares of Belorado and Orduna, expressed his surprise and concern over the nuns, their going into schism, and noted, I don't know if they realize the profound consequences of their decision. Well, yeah, they probably don't. They probably don't, yeah. Do most people realize the consequences of their actions when they do something evil? Probably not, right? I think most of the time when we do something wrong, we think it's good. So, yeah, I don't think they realize what they've done here. So I agree with him. Glad he's addressing it. The prelate made the remarks on May 17th on the church's Lantern, a program broadcast by the Spanish radio station Cope, following the schismatic decision of the Poor Clares of Belorado. There's got to be some kind of rad trad joke in that somewhere in there. Cope. Anyways, in relation to their leaving the Catholic Church to place themselves under the authority of Pablo de Rojas, a false bishop excommunicated in 2019. Here's the excommunication: because he was consecrated by Bishop Daniel Dolan of the schismatic line Thuk, and then also by Bishop Williamson. And we've been seeing this. In fact, we heard rumors that are likely true because they haven't been denied at this point. So I would say they're more than rumors at this point, which is why I'm sharing them at this point. Bishop Williamson consecrating or reconsecrating Vigano. I gave it plenty of time, months, in fact, before I commented on it, because I wanted to see, well, if Vigano wasn't consecrated by Bishop Williamson, and these are just rumors and false accusations, well, surely he would come out and set the record straight. Yet he hasn't done that, which tells me, yeah, it's true. So this isn't the first time we've heard of this with Bishop Williamson, a schismatic bishop who is evidently reconsecrating bishops, according to the Missal of 62, presumably, because evidently the Novus Ordo is insufficient. So the Missal of 69 would be insufficient for some of them. So anyways, he was automatically excommunicated. Why? Because this is an act of schism. And so he was automatically excommunicated, and they then declared the excommunication of Don Pablo de Rojas. That is who the nuns are teaming up with. The bishop says, I'm worried about the situation, thinking about what has come about in such a surprising way on Monday. Aikita said, regarding what surprised him the most, the archbishop responded, first of all, the secrecy with which all this has been proposed, and that indeed when early on Monday morning, around 6 a.m, I received a WhatsApp message from a priest telling me that these nuns are leaving the Catholic Church. I thought it was fake. Can we get that priest to WhatsApp the bishop Reason and Theology's YouTube link? I think that is something the bishop needs to be watching. After that first surprise in verifying with the vicaress of the congregation itself, of the monastery itself, that this was the case, little by little, we have learned the news. First of all, they said that it was unanimous, and the next day a sister left the monastery. Now, I'm sorry, but I just don't see this coming out of nowhere. I suspect if we looked into this, there were warning signs all along the way, which would make me have to ask the question, how come the bishop didn't know about the warning signs all along the way? How come this came to him as a surprise? I think what happens is bishops are sincerely doing their best. I mean, I can't say all bishops are, but I think the average bishop sincerely doing their best, but they are bogged down with all sorts of issues that they are dealing with, and they just cannot be fully apprised on what all is going on in their diocese, which isn't necessarily their fault given all of the responsibilities that they have. But it does raise the question, should the Holy Father at some point um, make territories a lot smaller and make much more bishops, so that there are we have a situation where bishops can manage their territory a lot easier because it's a smaller jurisdiction. Just a thought. The Pope has that ability. Doubt it's going to happen, but I don't know. That's a solution. But I suspect the bishop is very busy and so was not aware of what all is going on. And I suspect there were plenty of warning signs that would have alerted him to this all along the way. In fact, on May 16th, Sister Maria Amparo left the convent and said that she left above all so as not to belong to this sect. Well, good for her. Noting that before her departure, she endured 3 days without Mass and without anything, and that I suffered total surveillance so that I couldn't speak with the older sisters, she complained. In the conversation with La Linterna de la Iglesia, y'all can make fun of me now, the Archbishop of Burgos commented that he was able to speak with that nun and that it's clear that they didn't want her to be well informed about what was happening, and she found out on Sunday afternoon when Pablo de Rojas showed up. How sad. That's sad. I feel bad for her. The prelate also said that recently a person wrote a letter in which he praised the fervor of the nuns during Holy Week, which is why what has happened is even more surprising. It's all absolutely strange, and I don't know if the sisters themselves realize the consequences, the bishop said. It's not strange. It's not strange, Your Excellency. It's really not. It's the result of years and years and years of propaganda that is spread by dissenters in Catholic circles. It's not out of nowhere. This has been going on for a long time. And it is high time for the bishops to be aware that this is going on, because what's going to happen, as I've often warned, is they will then become aware whenever their own priests go into schism, or when, large communities like this go into schism within their jurisdiction. They will be aware then. But by then, it's a little too late. Day late, dollar short. You need to know about this before it happens to your priests, monasteries, convents. You need to know, and you need to address it before it happens. On May 13th, when they announced their departure from the Catholic Church, the poor Clares of Belorado indicated in a letter, and by the way, it's like 70 pages, but it's in Spanish, so I can't read it. So there it is. It's in Spanish. Maybe some of the Spanish speaking viewers can summarize it for me and send me the summary, and I will then review it based on your translation. But 70 pages, that's a lot. Wow. But there it is. Okay. They indicated in a letter, in a declaration, that they recognize His Holiness Pius XII as the last valid supreme pontiff. Oh, goodness. Come on. Seriously? So they're going old school set of a contest. They're not the new set of a contest, like the 2023 versions in 2024 where they want to say all the popes prior to Francis aren't, are popes, but not Francis. No, they're going old school. Like they're going to the OGs, and they're just saying, Pius XII is the last pope. So pretty much everybody from John the 23rd unto the present, none of these are popes. How did this happen? The bishop says, because the sedevacantists are very active in evangelizing people. And unfortunately, we're not doing enough to address it. That's how this happened. A decision that was explained through an attached 70-page text called Catholic Manifesto, claiming that the See of St. Peter is vacant and usurped. You see, because when schismatics go into schism, when schismatics schism, they still think that they're Catholic, and thus they declare it's a Catholic manifesto. As I've said over and over, schismatics don't think they're schismatic. They still think that they're in the church. They still think that they're Catholic. But the See of St. Peter is vacant and usurped. We've heard that once or twice before. At the same time, the nuns stated that their community is leaving the conciliar church to which it belonged to become part of the Catholic Church. Again, you see, this is how schismatics operate. They don't say we're leaving the Catholic Church. They say we're leaving your schismatic conciliar church. You're part of the schism. You're not the Catholic Church. We're joining the Catholic Church. We're actually Catholics. You're not Catholics. I'm not in schism. Rome is in schism. This is how it operates. They complained that in recent years there have been contradictions, double and confusing language, ambiguities, and loopholes in clear doctrine have been coming from the chair of Peter. This is the propaganda that I have spent so many hours addressing on this channel. But we need more people addressing this stuff. Do y'all see the need for it? Do y'all see why I talk about this stuff? An entire convent going into schism? This is why it's necessary for us to not look the other way and address the issues. The Archbishop stressed that if for them, after Pius XII, everything that follows is invalid, then the ministry of apostolic succession is invalid. And this means that all the sacramental acts, except baptism, are invalid, and evidently all vows and legal issues. Therefore, this means that they haven't taken vows as religious either. When I saw on a television network that they were happy, content, well, I am glad that they are well, but I don't know if they are really aware that this is not like changing your room or changing your habit, the prelate continued. They're not well. I don't know how we got to that one. They're not well. I don't know if they realize the profound consequence. It's really bothering me. I'm wanting to look and see if the subs are back to 666. I don't know. It's just, I can't. Let me get back to it. Let me focus. Squirrel. I don't know if they realize the profound consequences that this step has, and that is why my option or my opinion is that this should not be done precipitously. Let this media tidal wave pass. Let's see if it's possible to establish a relationship with them and dialogue and look at these issues and give them time to reconsider the situation that seems so surprising and strange to me, the bishop said. Bless his heart. Archbishop, I get it. You're busy. I totally get it. I can't say I'd be doing a whole lot better as a bishop with all of the stuff that you guys have to deal with. I get it. But this should not be a surprise or sound strange to you. You should be aware that this is a phenomenon that is really growing and increasing, and it needs to be addressed by the bishops. He's like blindsided by this. I just seems so surprising. Maybe we should just dialogue with him. It's a little past that point we're past the dialogue phase here, Your Excellency. We're way past that point. Uh, um, for a person to get to this point, they've gone way past that. We should have been doing the dialogue with them years ago. Years ago. After pointing out that Sister Paz, the vicaress, told him that the decision to separate from the Catholic Church was unanimous, Aikida said that, on the contrary, the sister who left the monastery says that there was no chapter, there was no vote, and therefore it is totally irregular, since the proper capitular and voting mechanisms of the congregations have not been respected. A possible path of reconciliation for these poor clares, the Spanish prelate noted, involves first a meeting and a reconsideration, and also listening to them about how they got to this point. Your Excellency, they got to this point because they've been listening to years of sedevacantist propaganda. It's pretty prevalent online. They expressed discontent, they expressed difficulties, things that they have not conveyed to the bishop's delegate for religious, nor to the chaplain. Then it is necessary to listen to what are the reasons for profound discontentment, because life is complicated. But to the point of saying, I am leaving the Catholic faith to embrace another type of doctrine, it seems to me so extreme. Your Excellency, they don't think they're leaving the Catholic faith. They think that they're fully embracing the Catholic faith, and that you and Francis have abandoned the Catholic faith. This is the way heretics and schismatics operate. They don't think, I'm leaving the Catholic faith. No, they think, I'm embracing the Catholic. This is the way Satan works. He doesn't say, yes, come join me with nothing but eternity of torment and torture and pain. And that's not how he's going to sell it. He's going to sell it as, oh, look at this path of opportunity and pleasure and these things that you want. He's going to present it in a good way. And so, no, they're not going to think that they're leaving the Catholic faith. They think that they're fully embracing it now, and that you're the schismatic, and that you're the heretic, and that you, Vatican II, the post-conciliar church, is in schism. That's what they think. How did they get here? By listening to years and years and years of conditioning of fake news about Pope Francis, about Vatican II, about theology, all sorts of things. It definitely doesn't happen overnight. It's years of conditioning. The decision of the poor clares seems absolutely wrong to me. But we must see if it is possible to heal it, cure it, and reverse it. And give time for this to happen, he emphasized. I don't know what that means. I mean, I'm certainly open to seeing, schismatics brought back to the church and helped, and, help them work through the confusion. But I don't know about give this time for it to happen. Yeah, it would take years to undo this mess. It took years to make it, so it'd probably take 10 times that amount to undo it. It's like you can mess up a room in 10 minutes, but to put it all back together will take hours. And so if it took them years to get to this point of confusion, it's going to take decades to undo it. It seems to me that a 90-something-year-old nun, after 70 years of religious life, can't just go over to another world view of life, he says. This is why I address this stuff. This is why. 90-year-old nuns, after 70 years of vocation, go into schism at the very end. This is serious. We need to be speaking up and addressing this. We can't keep looking the other way. For these sisters, the Archbishop said, it would be good to spend the last years of their lives in the Catholic Church. Yeah, but they think that they're in the Catholic Church by making this decision. They think they're leaving the Church of Satan. That's the problem. So, yes, from your perspective, it would be good for them to remain in the Catholic Church, but they're not going to remain in what they think is the Church of the Antichrist. He might be in for a rude awakening when he finds out more details about what they believe and why they believe it and what they think about him. This is why we can't afford to be blindsided like this, especially bishops can't afford this. They need to know. And so how can we help them know? We can be more vocal. We can be much more vocal in getting their attention and warning them about what's going on in their own territory. The other article says they joined the bishop, excommunicated in 2019. They say, as of today, the day of Our Lady of Fatima, the year 2024, our community, leaving the conciliar church to which it belonged, becomes part of the Catholic Church under the tutelage and jurisdiction of, wow, that is a long name. Wow, really? Golly, look how long that is. It only takes up a whole sentence. The schismatic Bishop Rojas, and they say he's the legitimate bishop of the Holy Catholic Church. Again, this is the way it works. Schismatics don't think they go into schism. They don't. They think that they're going into the church and leaving a false church. As detailed in the 2019 excommunication decree signed by the then Bishop of Bilbao, Bishop Ikeda, today Archbishop of Burgos, Rojas has presented himself as a bishop and has been consecrated twice. The first by Daniel Dolan of the line of the schismatic Thuk, and the second by the schismatic Bishop Richard Nelson Williamson, currently in a situation of excommunication. In the letter signed by the Mother Abbess Isabel de la Trinidad, it is added that they recognize Pope Pius XII as the last valid supreme pontiff. Is that SS as in saint? I don't think Pius XII was made a saint. When did this happen? Pius XII was made a saint? SS Pius XII? I don't know what SS would refer to other than saint. Okay. A decision that is explained through an attached text to that 70-page manifesto. In the letter, the poor clares accuse the persistent silence of the pastors in the face of events of great magnitude that have been hitting the souls of the contemplative sisters. Well, okay. SS refers to His Holiness. Good to know. Okay. Sanctita. Okay. This is why I think there's some legitimate grievances. Now, I suspect if we go through their 70-page document, it's going to be filled with propaganda and lies and fake news and all sorts of wild stuff. I suspect, however, there will be some legitimate grievances in there. And this is how it happens. By there being legitimate things to criticize in the Catholic Church. Legitimate problems, I should say. Not that problems are legitimate, but legitimately recognizing that there are problems and a failure to address some of those problems on part of the clergy. That does help push towards sedevacantism and this kind of stuff. How do you make a schismatic? Here's how. Point to real legitimate grievances, show those people the legitimate grievances, get them stirred up and concerned, then have them start to look more into situations in the church and feed them propaganda, lies, fake news, spins, and then point them to schismatic ecclesiology as the solution. That's how you make this situation right here. Point to some legitimate grievances, mix in some lies with it, and then point them to a false solution that they think will actually solve the real problems, real or even fake. This is how it happens. And so they've likely seen some real things of great magnitude that the pastors have been silent about. And that causes them to look further into the situation in the post conciliar period. And then they start buying into propaganda. And that in recent years, contradictions, double languages have been arriving from the chair of Peter, confusing ambiguity, gaps, and clear doctrine. See, there it is. There's the lie. So they might notice some legitimate concerns and failures to address those, but then they have mixed in with that, sprinkled in with it, lies. They also report suffering persecution from many superiors, pastors, sisters, priests, some who call themselves friends without being friends, making special reference to the fact that we have reached the point of being blocked from Rome for not wanting to grant us a sales license for the convent of Dario that would have solved the community's financial problems derived from the commitments made for the purchases of another monastery years ago. I again suspect, I don't know about that situation and all of its details, but it honestly strikes me as you're upset about this situation and you're frustrated. And so you start looking for some solution and you found a faux solution. It's money, follow the money. That might be a motive that gets them looking into this stuff, and then they bought into the fake news and lies and all that. I don't know. I don't know the situation. Response from the Archbishop. The Archbishop responded to the nuns with a joint statement found here. Note from the Archbishop of Burgos regarding the manifesto of the community. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Y'all can go and read it. Sends a joint statement in which they address three clearly differentiated issues. Firstly, about the situation of the monastery. Secondly, about a letter and manifesto known on this Monday. And finally, a list of the actions. Regarding the situation of the monasteries, it is stated that they have always been cared for by the chaplains and that during the visits of the Archbishop, the nuns did not express any discomfort or complaint. On May 27th to 28th, the canonical visit to Belorado and Orduna, the two seats that make up this community, one in the Archdiocese of Burgos and the other, the Diocese of Vitoria, was planned before electing the new abbess on the 29th in 2020. Community agreed with the bishopric of Vitoria to purchase the monastery of Orduna, where they moved from the monastery of Dario. According to the episcopal statement, exempt from an initial amount, the community has not made the payments. In March 2024, Sister Isabel claims to have a benefactor, but due to suspicions that this person was outside the Catholic Church, the Bishop of Vitoria tried to meet with the abbess without success. On May 7th of this year, the bishopric of Vitoria summons the Poor Clares before a notary to rescind the purchase sales contract. As Sister Isabel does not accept the termination of the contract, she takes the matter to court, the statement says. The bishops also affirmed that neither the abbess's letter nor the Catholic manifesto have been sent in an official and reliable manner, either to the Archbishopric or to the bishoprics of Vitoria. Regarding the content, the accusations of silence and acquiescence of the pastors and the allusions to ambiguity and gaps in doctrine are rejected. Regarding the supposed blockade from Rome on the sales of the convent, the episcopal statement indicates that it is not the responsibility of the archbishopric or the president of the Federation of Bourg-Clairs to which the community belonged until today, nor has any communication been received, neither in the Burgos nor in Bilbao. The statement also questions whether the schismatic decision was made by the entire community, since the abbess's signature is stamped on both the letter and the manifesto. Finally, the statement details the actions undertaken, explaining that the archbishopric was alerted of the possible schismatic outcome on April 13th, about over a month ago. On the 24th, Bishop Mario Aikita initiated a preliminary investigation and communicated it to the Holy See. This May 13th, the bishop learned of the documents, the letter, and the manifesto by indirect means. At mid-morning, he managed to speak by phone with the abbess's vicar's sister, Sister Paz, confirming the abandonment of the Catholic Church by the community and stating that the decision has been made unanimously by all the nuns, to which the prelate demands an official communication. Sister Paz also confirms to the bishop that the excommunicated bishop Rojas has visited the monastery at least 3 times, and that a person who claims to be a priest and direct assistant to Rojas has also visited, who will celebrate Mass for them starting today. The archbishop, upon learning of this circumstance, warned of the seriousness of the act and canonical penalty they incur. Finally, the statement from the Catholic Church urges all the faithful to refrain from participating in any act carried out in the monastery of Santa Clara del Bolorado or in the monastery of Santa Clara de Orduna. My gringo pronunciation of Spanish terms there. There it is. Wowzers. We are going to take a look at Michael Knowles and his reaction to Pope Francis here in a moment. We will meet back in about 3 minutes and continue with the show, and we will review his reaction, his review to Pope Francis, his comments, and we're going to see, is Michael Knowles becoming a Popesplainer? All right, we'll be right back.
Hey friends, I'm now teaching as an adjunct professor at Catholic Polytechnic University, and I am excited to announce that we will be offering the first ever Magisterial Studies Certificate program. It consists of 3 courses: an introduction to the magisterium, councils, dogmas, canons, and decrees, and evaluating magisterial teachings. If you want to further your education and learn more about Catholic teaching authority, this is the program for you. Check out catholicpolytechnic.org and click on the certificate tab at the top to sign up for the course today.
Have you ever heard someone say that Pope Francis denied the existence of hell, or Pope Francis worshipped an idol in the Vatican gardens? There are many claims that have been made about Pope Francis for over a decade, and many of them are inaccurate. I've set the record straight in my free ebook called Top 10 Lies About Pope Francis Exposed. Get your free copy today by visiting reason.podia.com. All right. We are seeing public figures going down the wrong path, joining the radical traditionalists, getting confused because they see things that they're rightly concerned about in the Catholic Church, and then the faux traditionalists, fake traditionalists, come to them and then present to them solutions which are no solutions at all. And they sometimes buy into it, and then as celebrities, they then promote the ideology of radical traditionalism, which is not traditional at all. We've been seeing that lately. But hopefully, this is a case of the exact opposite. Hopefully, Michael Knowles is seeing through the propaganda, seeing through the lies that I would liken to some of the same propaganda he has probably seen with Black Lives Matter and all sorts of other things. That's basically how bad some of the propaganda is from the radical traditionalists. Hopefully he's starting to see that, because when I watch this video, he's in the right direction. I don't agree with some of the takes here. I'll maybe tweak some of them, but providing some additional information that likely would have also changed his perspective. But he's in the ballpark, and he's in the right direction if he keeps this up. And might he be a Popesplainer at the Daily Wire? That would be awesome. He's got 2 million subs. He has a large influence, a large reach. He could reach people with the truth. And so I'm excited to see what happens. Let's take a look at it. I am reviewing the video. I watched the whole Pope Francis interview. Here's what I learned. In reference, of course, to that interview with 60 Minutes. All right, let's start around the 35-second mark.
Really buy it. I got to watch this interview myself. I watched the whole interview, and the headlines simply are misleading. Just on those 3 points. Immigration, yeah, we need to take on all the immigrants. Conservatism is suicidal. People are fundamentally good. What does Pope Francis actually say on immigration?
So he's saying basically the headlines, the news that you're seeing about this interview, they're not true.
My grandparents were Catholic, immigrated from Northern Ireland in the 1930s to the United States, seeking a better life. And I know your family too fled fascism. And you have talked about, with migrants, many of them children, that you encourage governments to build bridges, not walls.
Migration is something that makes a country grow. They say that you Irish migrated and brought the whiskey, and that the Italians migrated and brought the mafia. It's a joke. Don't take it badly. But migrants sometimes suffer a lot. They suffer a lot.
All right, he didn't play the rest of it because he's going to note it, however. After that, though, he does talk about how we need to be open to migrants, but it could be that, after assessing their situation, that we need to send them back. Just depends on the person's circumstance. So he's not in favor of keeping criminals and troublemakers. He says, look, in those cases, you might need to send them back, but give a person a chance. Give them a chance. And that's a balanced approach. And by the way, some people are going to say, well, who is he to even comment on this? Pope Francis, the magisterium can't comment on this. The magisterium can comment on anything related to faith and morals. And the issue of migration certainly impacts faith and morals. So insofar as it impacts something related to faith and morals, he can comment on it. We need to hear that. We certainly need to hear it when he speaks magisterially on the matter, which he has. So you don't need to just automatically dismiss him. But he's taking a balanced approach. Be open to migration, but hey, look, if there's problems, you might need to send them back. That part of the interview, I wish he had played that clip, but he doesn't. But he does mention it. So he did at least cover that with the audience.
Based? Not to sound too zoomer about it, but the headline, Pope Francis says you need to take in all of the migrants. And what does he say? He goes, yeah, look, these migrants, they suffer a lot. And when you Irish came over to America, you brought booze. And when the Italians came over, they brought the mafia. Huh, yeah, I'm just joking. But, those migrants, they bring some problems, don't they? So, I don't know. It seems like everything he said there is totally fine. And then even when he says, look, when migrants show up to the border, they need to be received. But he follows that up by saying, and then you got to send some of them home, maybe. It's not just that you're going to keep them there forever. You have to receive them, hear their requests, and then you're going to send some of them home. So if you just take the Pope's words here, not the headlines and not the leading questions, I don't disagree with a single syllable. Migrants suffer. They often bring a lot of pretty serious problems, and we're going to hear them out and then send a bunch of them home. Yeah, okay, I agree. This is like,
now, of course, Pope Francis doesn't weigh in on how frequent this would be. That would be more up to the state to determine on a case-by-case basis. So he, of course, doesn't weigh in on that. That's some of the commentary that's more indicative of Michael Knowles' perspective than Pope Francis. Pope Francis just doesn't weigh in on the question of how often this is going to happen, and probably shouldn't.
when you read the headlines about Pope Francis on the social issues, on people will say he's a little soft on the Rainbow Coalition, the LGBT LMNOP. That came up during the interview. Here is what Pope Francis had to say about LGBT unions.
And before we do that, again, remember, Pope Francis is the one who says homosexuality is a sin. In other words, acting on same-sex attraction is a sin. And the reason is because any act outside of a marriage between one man and one woman, any sexual act outside of that context is going to be sinful. So Pope Francis is certainly not on board with any of the sexual sins. What he wants to do, however, is reach people in that community without blessing their sin. He wants to bless the people, not their sin. He wants to reach the people while not condoning their sin. And so his approach to that certainly is well-intended. Might we criticize the approach to one extent or another? Perhaps, yeah. But his intention is certainly to reach people. Whether he has been successful in reaching people in that community with the gospel truth or not is a different question. So we might criticize some of the approach, but his intentions are right and his doctrine is right.
Last year, you decided to allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament. I cannot. The Lord made it that way. But to bless each person, yes. The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the church.
And that was an epic moment as I reviewed this clip the other day. That was an epic moment because he once again confirmed what I have been saying from day one. The document teaches that you can bless persons, individuals, but not their union, not their relationship. And so that was a pretty epic moment seeing that. And it's also been interesting seeing how those who falsely criticized him either are putting a spin on what he said or aren't addressing it at all. Let me give you an example of that. Let me see if I can actually pull up an example here for you. I think I had it. Yeah, here it is. Here. Before we take a look at Michael Knowles' comments, look at this example. Pope Francis says in the document Fiducia Supplicans, the church does not have the power to impart blessings on unions of persons of the same sex. They then posted, Breitbart says, Vatican reverses ban on blessing gay couples. So they're equivocating the blessing of the union with blessing a couple. A couple here refers to two people who are in a disordered relationship, blessing them as persons, but not their union. They're equivocating on couple with relationship. And they just don't get that the document is very clear in defining couple here is understood to be two people who are in a relationship, but the object of the blessing is not the relationship, it's the two people. And it's for them to be freed from any sin that is involved in their life. The document is clear on that point. And so they're equivocating, right? They don't see that they're the ones coming with this false interpretation. So whenever they experience this cognitive dissonance, like hearing Pope Francis say, no, bless the persons, each person, not the union, they're going to experience that cognitive dissonance. And it's always interesting to me to see, like, whenever that is presented to people, how they will react. And one of the things I absolutely enjoy doing on this channel is inducing cognitive dissonance in the dissenters. I absolutely relish that. I enjoy it every second of it. I'm like, I love it. It's fun. You know why? Because I want them to be confronted with reality and the truth, and not with all the propaganda. And I want to see, okay, are they going to do the right thing? Or are they going to somehow spin it? Well, in this particular case, when confronted with the truth and experiencing that cognitive dissonance, instead of going back and re-examining things and questioning, well, did we get it wrong the first time? Nope, they put another spin on it. Pope Francis says to bless a homosexual type union, however, goes against the given right against the law. That's in the interview. They then say Pope Francis backtracks on blessings for same-sex couples. They're still equating a blessing a union with the blessing the couple, right? They're still equivocating on those terms and not understanding. Maybe we're misinterpreting him here. Maybe we're understanding couple to mean the union when he is referring to two persons. But instead of just saying sorry, we got it wrong, or maybe we need to look further into this, maybe we got it wrong. No, let's just keep spinning it. Let's just keep spinning it. This is what they do. This is what the reactionaries and the critics do all day long. And you know what? I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to stop pointing it out. If you guys continue to slander the successor of St. Peter and you continue to spread lies, I will continue to be right behind you, calling you out for it. And when you shut up and you stop doing this, that's when I will shut up. And that's when I will stop doing this. That's when I will stop addressing it. When you stop spreading the lie, I won't have to address the issues anymore. We can move on to other things. We can talk about other things. But I will keep it up. I will be on you like white on rice. Like, what was that thing that Major Payne said? Like white on rice on a paper plate in a snowstorm. Yes, that will be me. Anyways, let's get back to it. It is interesting, though. Many of the critics haven't said anything at all. They've just been silent. But the others who have said something have just experienced this cognitive dissonance, and they've just doubled down. Like Bishop Strickland doubled down, just doubled down. Breitbart doubled down. Continue to spin it. It's comical at this point. Okay, let's see how Michael Knowles reacts. Some are saying no volume. Okay. Let's fix that.
Goes against the given right, against the law of the church.
Based again. So you, Pope Francis, you said that gay marriage is super fun and great and cool, huh? And the Holy Father responds, he says, no, I didn't. It's disordered and God can't bless sin. And it is not possible for me to bless a same-sex union. I bless individuals, but that's always been the case. And so, yeah, we bless individuals, of course, but whatever LGBT agenda you're trying to cram down our throats, ain't what we're...
Spot on. Michael, have you been watching my show? Well said. That's exactly what I've been saying. Exactly what I've been saying from day one. You bless individuals, the two persons who are in this relationship, what you might call the couple, but you can't bless the union or the relationship itself. And what is it for? It's not to validate their union. It's rather to help them be freed from any sinful aspects in their relationship, such as sinning sexually against each other. So yeah, he's spot on. He got it. And you know what? I've been watching people react to his reaction to Pope Francis, and they're saying, I'm concerned about Michael Knowles. I'm concerned he's becoming a Popesplainer. I love it. I love it. Yes. Yes. I hope you guys are concerned. I hope you are. I hope you feel the pressure of the truth. I hope you feel it. I hope you guys are really concerned. Like, I don't know, y'all. We might not be able to spin it for too much longer. Exactly. So I was really happy to see this from Michael Knowles. Now, the next part, I don't necessarily agree with his comments on Pope Francis in relation to the conservative issue, but I understand how he misunderstands what Pope Francis says here. And as I've said before, when I reviewed Pope Francis on the issue of critiquing conservatives, I think the fault is more with Pope Francis in failing to communicate better. So I don't blame Michael Knowles. I rather blame Pope Francis for this. He could be better at communicating what he's trying to say. What he's saying is 100% legitimate, but it's going to be misheard by a lot of people. And Michael Knowles mishears what Pope Francis is saying, but I don't blame Knowles for that. I don't blame anybody else in the United States for that. I more have to blame in this situation Pope Francis for it, with all due respect to him, because of a poor way of expressing and communicating this. Let's watch it together.
Then he says basically the same thing about surrogacy. He says surrogacy is evil. You can't do it. Can't buy people. Now, the most troublesome thing that Papa Francesco said during this interview was he criticized conservatism as suicidal.
You used an adjective, conservative. That is, conservative is one who clings to something and does not want to see beyond that. It is a suicidal attitude. Because one thing is to take tradition into account, to consider situations from the past, but quite another is to be closed up inside a dogmatic box.
Now, again, expressed very poorly. So a lot of times the situations with Pope Francis, it's not that he's confusing or expressing things poorly, it's that media puts spins on it. In this case, this is one of those cases, and it's not the only one, but this is one of those cases I think the fault is with Pope Francis. Pope Francis could, first of all, just say, look, the term conservative isn't even very helpful here, because what I'm about to critique isn't really indicative of conservatism as a whole. It's rather of a subset of conservatives. And I'm not critiquing them because they're conservative. What I'm critiquing is the following. And therefore, it would have been helpful if he had rephrased things. What is he doing here? Well, as I showed at great length in a previous video, I'll just briefly summarize it, though. Pope Francis himself is actually a conservative. Now, obviously, depends on, how do we define the term conservative? That's part of the problem, which is why I would have avoided using the term. But there are many things that Pope Francis says that people will say that's conservative. That's very conservative. Like saying homosexuality is a sin, being against transgender surgeries, being against abortion. There's a lot of things that he says that people are going to say, or being against women's ordination. They're going to say that puts you in the conservative camp. So Pope Francis himself fits the bill of a conservative to one degree or another, one definition or another. However, he does not fit the bill when it comes to certain groups of conservatives who love small t traditions over capital T tradition, who claim that they hold the capital T tradition when in fact they don't, who claim they're traditional when in fact they're not, who are more Pharisees than anything. Pope Francis is critiquing that group of people who say that they hold a tradition, but really they don't. And they also have a false understanding of tradition because they don't understand what the development of doctrine is in relation to tradition, that is capital T, versus small t traditions, ecclesial traditions. They don't even make the necessary distinctions between sacred tradition or ecclesial tradition. Human tradition versus apostolic tradition, or divine apostolic tradition versus human apostolic tradition. There's a good 10 or 11 distinctions that I can make right now on tradition that have historically been made by the scholastics and manualists when we speak of tradition. It's Catholic theology to make these distinctions. They often don't make those distinctions, so they end up conflating something that is reformable with something that isn't reformable. And that is what Pope Francis is getting at. He's not against dogma per se, because as I've shown many times, he is all in favor of dogma and says dogma can't change. But he is in favor of dogmatizing things that are not dogmatic and dogmatizing things that can change. And he says that's suicidal. That's who he is critiquing, and I get it. What he's saying is 100% legit. I understand who he's targeting, who he's trying to critique, because that's brought up in the context of these conservative bishops who are critiquing him, Strickland, Vigano, and others. So I understand what Francis is saying. He's 100% right to say it, but he did it really poorly, because what the average United States Catholic will hear is, wait, you're against being conservative, so that means you're against, being pro-life, you're against, so what, you're in favor of abortion, you're in favor of homosexual acts, and all those things that Pope Francis wouldn't be in favor of. But that's how the average United States Catholic is going to hear what Francis said. So it would have been more helpful if he had just, if he would have, phrased things differently, corrected her and said, let's avoid the term conservative. Let's get to the heart of the issue. My problem is with people who claim that they're holding to the deposit of faith when they don't. My claim is with people who say that they hold the dogma when they don't. My claim is with people who break communion with the Catholic Church while claiming to be Catholic. That's what he should have said and how he should have said it. Instead, he communicated it in a way that your average person, they're not going to hear him correctly, and they're going to misunderstand. Father Stephen in the chat says, I see that, Father Stephen Imbarado says, I see that LifeSite News reported that the Pope said that conservative bishops are suicidal. See, yeah, that's definitely putting a spin on it. But, and to the degree that they do that, they are culpable. And I don't make excuses for them. But I want to say, to the degree that just people misunderstood Pope Francis's comments here, in just some general ways, I think that's a little bit more on Pope Francis. In that particular situation, I think there's some culpability on their part. But what we're about to see from Michael Knowles, I don't think is a good take on it, but it's likely because he's missing information, and I don't blame him for that. I have to blame more Pope Francis for that. He should have been a little bit more clear. Okay, so what we're about to see with Michael Knowles is he's going to go to the, not everything the Pope says is infallible. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. Look, obviously, not everything the Pope says is infallible. I don't know any Catholic who thinks that everything the Pope says is infallible. I know non-Catholics who think that, and so maybe that's necessary for Michael Knowles to say, given his audience is probably a bunch of non-Catholics, or a lot of non-Catholics. Maybe that's helpful for them. But for Catholics, at least within the Catholic Church, it goes without saying, yeah, obviously not everything the Pope says is infallible. The problem is we also often miss that category of non-definitive authoritative teachings that do require religious assent of intellect and will. And so even if they aren't infallible teachings, they are things that require religious assent. And so they require adherence. We often miss that part. Now, in this particular context, it's none of the above, because this is not a magisterial statement on part of Pope Francis. It's just an interview. It's not magisterial at all. I think that we need to, emphasize the fact this isn't magisterial, but we also need to put him into context and say, look, here's what Pope Francis is trying to get at. It's a certain subset of conservatives that he is critiquing, and he did so poorly. But this is what he's getting at. Not all conservatives, broadly speaking. That would be a little bit more productive, I think. But let's take a look at what he says.
Okay. I humbly would suggest that perhaps what in the Holy Father's discussion of political philosophy here, he is reminding us that the Pope is fallible except when he's infallible. Okay, and that the Pope, this is misunderstood by many people, including Christians. papal infallibility does not mean that anything the Pope says has to be 100% true. If he comes out and says this rice pilaf is really spicy, but you find out it's not spicy, that doesn't contradict papal infallibility. When he's speaking on matters of faith and morals ex cathedra, then he is infallible. When he's giving his view of political conservatism, which perhaps is missing a few parts, okay, that's just an opinion. No one's suggesting that Pope Francis is the most right-wing or conservative pontiff that we've ever had. But so what? Even Catholics, I'm quite a mackerel-snapping papist. Doesn't mean that every single syllable on any topic under the sun that the Pope utters has to be 100% gospel truth. That is not and has never been what papal infallibility means.
Right. But this wasn't necessary to even take that angle. Although if we do, we still need to throw in there a treatment of religious submission of intellect and will to non-definitive teachings, but to just balance out those comments. But it wasn't even necessary to go that angle because Pope Francis isn't critiquing all conservatives. He himself is a conservative. And so Pope Francis just did very poorly in expressing what he was trying to communicate there. So I don't fault Knowles for that. I have to fault Pope Francis for that. And you know what? Maybe Pope Francis isn't very aware of how confusing some of those terms can be, some of the ways in which he communicates some of this. Maybe he's just not aware. So I'm not even judging his level of culpability when I say that the fault is with him. The fault is with him, but I don't know his personal level of culpability in the situation, not trying to determine that. But I will say this, Pope Francis needs some better advisors. By the way, Vatican, if y'all are ever listening, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'm willing to help y'all out. I can be your United States, advisor, and I can tell you beforehand, okay, if you phrase it this way, you're going to cause a lot of confusion. So let's avoid that. Let's say the same thing you're trying to say, but let's say it like this. I can help you out with that. I can do some wonders for you, Pope Francis and Vatican, Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith. I can help y'all out. So just email me, contact me. I'll do it for free. You don't have to pay me a dime. I'll do it for free. All right, so let's go to his comments around the 740-minute mark. Heart is where Pope Francis talks about the heart is good. And as soon as I heard this, I'm like, oh boy, all of the Calvinists listening to this interview are going to freak out. So here we go. All right.
All 6,000 plus has said that man, the heart, is fundamentally good.
That so-and-so is a sinner. Me too, I am a sinner. Everyone. The gospel is for everyone. If the church places a customs officer at the door, that is no longer the Church of Christ. Everyone.
When you look at the world, what gives you hope?
Everything. You see tragedies, but you also see so many beautiful things. You see heroic mothers, heroic men who have hopes and dreams, women who look to the future. That gives me a lot of hope. People want to live, people forge ahead, and people are fundamentally good. We are all fundamentally good. Yes, there are some rogues and sinners, but the heart itself is good.
Okay, this was the most controversial part because a lot of people pointed out that in Genesis we read that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth.
And also don't forget Jeremiah 17:9, that the heart is desperately wicked, who can know it?
And a lot of people were saying that what Pope Francis says here contradicts original sin, that actually man is totally evil, totally depraved, he's not fundamentally good. How could you say that? Just read Genesis. It says the imagination of his heart's evil from his youth. Okay, hold up. I understand how it's a little bit confusing. And there's a big focus on those verses. However, we also read that some people are righteous in the Bible. Noah is righteous in the Bible. In the Epistle to the Romans, we read, "He who does right is righteous as he is righteous." We read in the Psalms of a distinction between the just and the unjust, the righteous and the wicked. We read in lots of other places in the Bible verses that would seem to contradict the notion that man is totally depraved and totally evil. So what is Pope Francis saying when he says people are fundamentally good? What he's saying, I don't think I'm being too rosy here. I think this is just kind of basic Catholic and traditionally Christian teaching, is that God doesn't create evil. So God created man as good. His creation was good. He looked on his creation and saw his creation was good. And man abused his free will and did evil and disobeyed God. And so we have a fallen world where sin and death pervade the world. But that does not mean that man's fundamental, first, primary goodness is totally blotted out. That is a view that is held by Calvinists. That is a view that emerged in the 16th century with the Protestant revolutionary John Calvin. I have the line here.
Yeah, he's in the right direction. It's pretty similar to what I said when people initially asked me about it. I agree essentially with what he's saying here. Look, here's what we're saying. Luke 6:45. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. This is a both and. It's not an either or. And Pope Francis is just emphasizing one of the options here. But it's a both and. We can say that the heart is good. We can also say the heart is evil. Need to make distinctions. There's certainly this aspect to us where we are fundamentally good, but we often make bad choices due to concupiscence, stuff like that, ignorance, malice, and so on. We can emphasize the goodness part, our ability, our potentiality, how we are by nature, versus how we act, or an emphasis on concupiscence and the effects of original sin. And depending on which one you're emphasizing will kind of determine which one you're focused on. So I think that's all that's going on here. Pope Francis is just kind of focused on one aspect of one truth, and other people are pointing to this other truth. And it's like, look, we can do this all day long with the Bible. You can do this to Jesus all day long. Jesus, indicates that he's divine. And then he also indicates that he doesn't know the hour of his own coming, which would indicate he's not divine. But both are true. He knows in his divinity. His humanity doesn't innately know it, though his humanity knows because the divinity has communicated that to the humanity. So it's a both and, not an either or. And so we can do this with scripture all day long, just kind of take one thing and emphasize it, and then say, and somebody else comes along and says, but no, it says this, and it's both. You have to have an ability to make distinctions if you want to be a good theologian and understand divine revelation well. If you're going to play these little games of, well, Pope Francis said, the heart is good, but Jeremiah says it's bad. It's like, if you're going to have a difficulty with that, you're going to have a difficulty with the entire Bible. You're going to end up being one of those people who thinks the Bible contradicts itself. So I get what Pope Francis was saying. I think the only criticism I would offer Pope Francis is perhaps he's a little overly optimistic in how people exercise their will. And I guess I'd rather him be overly optimistic than pessimistic, I suppose. But perhaps he gives people too much credit, maybe. But I understand what he's saying theologically, and there's no issue theologically. So yeah, if that is the big controversy that came out of this, I think Pope Francis overall did well. So, but notice what they're not talking about. Notice they're not talking about, I guess we've gotten him wrong for the last 11 years. People aren't doing that. But I was happy to see that Knowles came with this, and was pointing some of this stuff out and came with overall good takes. So I was pleased to see it. I'm very happy to see that some of Knowles' critics are concerned that he's becoming a Popesplainer. Like, yes, we need more celebrity Popesplainers, because it seems like a lot of the celebrities are going the rad trad route. So let's hope that Michael Knowles continues to go in this direction. It looks like a good direction to me. I was happy to see it. Okay, so last bit here. Just want to briefly touch on it for just a few minutes. I did come across a tweet and a retweet from Father James Orton, where he was sharing from America Magazine, which I think he's the editor of, right? Something like that. Francis says no to women deacons in 60-minute interview. And I thought, I wonder how they're going to react to this. And so I go to the article, and I noticed this part that they seem to have emphasized several times in the article. Some advocates of women's ordination, both to the priesthood and to the diaconate, have questioned whether the Pope's no on a topic that is still under study, that is women to the diaconate, which he has said no to, has undermined his push towards synodality. I thought, really? No, he's not undermining synodality. He is undermining probably your interpretation of what synodality is, which isn't the accurate understanding of synodality. Well, let me repeat this. I know I've said it a lot of times, but for people who might be new to the channel, the Synod of Bishops is neither a synod nor is it of bishops. So it's a misnomer. We need a different term for this phenomenon. It's like, again, the Holy Roman Empire wasn't holy, it wasn't Roman, it wasn't an empire. Synod of Bishops, it's not a synod, and it's not entirely of bishops. Let's give it a different name. Let's communicate the same thing with a different name, because we're just confusing people with this designation, which is how it's defined, or how it's phrased in the Code of Canon Law. So Pope Francis would need to update the term in the Code of Canon Law. I think he needs to do it. I think what he needs to rename this to is an advisory body, a papal advisory body. That's what you need to call it, papal advisory body, because that's all it is. It's not a real synod. A synod would be an actual council. Councils generally have actual authority. This synod, however, according to the Code of Canon Law, has zero authority. It doesn't have any ability not to act on its own or to make any decisions independently of Pope Francis. So it's not really a council. It's not really a synod. And it's also not entirely of bishops. There's some laity there as well. There's some priests there as well. And okay, that's fine, because it's merely an advisory body. It's there to advise the Pope. And the Pope is free to take or leave the advice. And the Pope can ask anyone he wants for advice. He can ask a random homeless person on the street for advice if he wanted to. He can ask anybody for advice. Doesn't have to be bishops. It would be helpful, I think, if the majority are bishops, and the majority of the Synod of Bishops are bishops. It would be helpful, but he can ask anyone for advice. Can and should. He should ask people for advice who are bishops, who are priests, who are deacons, who are monks, who are nuns, who are laity. He should ask believers for advice and even non-believers for advice. Not that he necessarily needs to take the advice of the non-believer, but ask them for their advice just to understand how they're perceiving the discussion. You might be surprised how helpful it is to hear how an atheist hears what the church is saying. Not that we need to change what we're saying, no, but I need to hear how they're hearing it. Because if they're hearing it the wrong way, I need to phrase it better. So I need to hear how an atheist hears what the church says, how a Muslim hears what the church says, how Protestants hear, how, not to change what I'm saying, but to communicate more effectively if they are misunderstanding and how they're hearing it. So it's good to have advisors who are Christian, who are not Christian, who are Catholics, who are not Catholic, to just get a better feel for things. Now, I think that the majority of those advisors need to be bishops, obviously. They need to be Catholic, they need to be bishops. But it's also good to have a balanced group of people advising you. That's just, there's wisdom in that. And Scripture talks about that. You want a multitude of counselors. There's wisdom in it. But Pope Francis doesn't have to have any advisors. It would be foolish to have no advisors, but he's not obligated to have any, and he's not obligated to only have a certain kind. It's up to him to determine who his advisors are. So when it comes to the Synod of Bishops, if he wants the Synod to advise him on the question of the diaconate, great. And if he doesn't agree with what they say, he doesn't have to take it. Take it or leave it. It's advice, period. And it seems to me that Pope Francis has considered what was said and has said no. That's not undermining synodality. That's like saying, well, you didn't take advice of some of your advisors, so you're undermining the need for having advisors. No, I'm not undermining the need to have an advisor if I don't agree with some of my advisors. You don't have to agree with all of your advisors. That doesn't undermine the need to have advice. So to suggest that somehow this is undermining a push towards synodality, maybe undermining your understanding of synodality, which could be the common misconception that either the radical traditionalists and radical progressives have, and that is somehow a body, an entity that has the ability to change things in the church. Now, I'm sure if you press them on the issue, they'd get a lot more nuanced, but it seems to me that's kind of how they're pitching it, even if that isn't how they would explain it if you pressed them on it and pushed them into a corner. So yeah, I thought, nah, he's not undermining synodality. That's not it. You're not happy with his decision. Now the question is, are you going to accept that? Or are you going to assent to what he says? Or are you going to push back against it? Are they going to say, well, was it magisterial? Well, let's see how they respond. This was the one reaction I saw. I thought it was interesting. We'll see what else they say in the future. Lex Ludendi, most of the advisors should be bishops with the bishops, like Cardinal Alaric with bishops like these, who really needs advisors. Yeah, he needs to go. He needs his red hat, revoked, but it's my opinion. He needs to go, though. After his comments on women's ordination, according to Ratzinger, it's very questionable if he's still in full communion with the church. That it's inexcusable. Did a whole show on that a couple days ago. Go and check that out. Yeah, Pope Francis needs to choose better advisors. I think Holeric is one of the C9. Yeah, probably not a good idea to have him, Pope Francis, with all due respect. But it's up to him who he has advising him. He can choose poor advisors if he wishes to choose them. That's ultimately up to him. You get to choose your own advisors. He gets to choose his own advisors. They may or may not be good ones. It might be a mixed bag. Some of them might be good. Some of them might be bad. I think if you're going to choose cardinals, though, they all need to all be good advisors. None of them dissenters. Please review Marshall's commentary on the 60 Minutes. I haven't watched it. Is it worth reviewing? Okay. By the way, I during that break there, I had to just go and see if it's still at 666, and it's not. It's at 684 now, so we're good. We're out of the woods. I was concerned it may have gone back to 666. I was tempted. I had to go and check. We're good, though. So make sure, that the next time when we're at 99,000, that it doesn't stay at 616 or 666. I need y'all to pay attention to that and make sure that it just doesn't stay at either one. 616 is in reference to the textual variant of the book of Revelation that indicates the mark of the beast is 616 and not 666. So to account for both, I just mentioned both. Not weighing in on which variant is authentic, by the way. Pope Francis said climate change was the most important issue to him. I don't remember him saying it was the most important issue to him. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I don't recall him saying that. I do remember him emphasizing it. Yeah. I suppose I would probably have some other things that I would say would be more important to address, but not saying he shouldn't address that. Jacob says, Mr. Michael, how can I get into contact with Father Brown? Well, Father Brown, if you're watching, there is a Jacob here who wants to get in touch with you. By the way, I do have a video for y'all to check out in relation to the climate change issue with Pope Francis. Let me pull it up real quick. Let's see the name of it. It was something to the effect of, can the magisterium teach on matters of science? I think is... let me see. I'm trying to find it because I think y'all would benefit from it if you're curious about the climate change issue. I'll find it. Give me a second. Do y'all remember some of y'all? Do y'all remember the name of it? This is gonna bug me. I need to find it. I might have to just put it in the show notes later. It was maybe a year ago. It was something to the effect of, can the Pope or can the magisterium teach on matters of fact or matters of science? But when I type in any of those keywords, it's not coming up. And it's a important video. What I'll do is I'll summarize it real quick since I can't find it. Effectively, the Pope can weigh in on questions such as climate change or just matters of science in general, insofar as they impact matters of faith and morals. Now, his general conclusions on matters of faith and morals when he weighs in, those could certainly be objects of assent if he teaches them authoritatively. However, the matters of fact, matters of science per se, he can't authoritatively speak on those as Pope. Maybe he can authoritatively speak on one of those as a scientist, but he cannot authoritatively speak on those as Pope. So insofar as those matters of fact are true and they factor into his teaching on faith and morals, the proposition will require assent. But if he is mistaken on a matter of science or fact or history, and insofar as that mistake has impacted his judgment on matters of faith and morals, then we might be able to discuss with withholding of intellectual assent in those particular cases. So it kind of hinges on how true the matter of science, in fact, is. I'm still looking for it here. So you can't outright just say, no, the Pope can't weigh in on these things. Yes, he can, insofar as they impact matters of faith and morals, and that fact is accurate. But insofar as he says something that is purely just matter of fact or history, or that matter of fact is inaccurate, that will then impact the level of assent owed to the proposition that he gives. That's kind of what I said in the video, but I did so a little bit more extensively in it. I can't find it. I'm scrolling through, and I'm looking everywhere here, and I can't find it. Give it one last shot. Yeah. Sorry, y'all. Maybe it's time for me to do another video on it since I can't find it. Is that it? Our Environmental Teachings Magisterial. There we go. I think that's it. Yeah, I need to repost that and rename it because I couldn't find it. If I can't find it, I don't know how y'all can find it. Yeah, very good. Our Environmental Teachings Magisterial. Maybe watch that for just a little bit more of an explanation on what I just covered here. I address it a little bit more thoroughly. So you can't just give a blanket, no, I don't have to accept this, or I always have to accept everything that he says on, matters of climate change or something. It's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. But I notice that people tend to fall in one camp or another, and it's a little bit more complex than that. So go and watch that. I'll probably repost it, restream it under a different title. Here it is. So you can just kind of see the thumbnail. So you'll recognize it when you see it. This is what it looks like right here. Our Environmental Teachings Magisterial is the name of it. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Anyways, just wanted to sneak that in since it came up. Lex said, bro, really can't find his own video. I can't. I mean, I have over 3,000 videos at this point. I'm sorry. I can't remember them all. It's just, yeah, it's too much. The catalog has become way too large for me to, and that's an issue. That's why I try to put things in playlists at this point. At least you can go through a playlist, a magisterium playlist or church controversies playlist or news playlist. I don't know. There's just too much at this point. That's since what? I created the channel in 2019, over 3,000 videos. Most of them over an hour long. It's a lot of commentary. It's a lot of work. Appreciate you finding that, by the way. Great Wall. You could add some tags to the video. Yeah, I tend to add some tags. I found it for searching for global warming. Okay. Playlists are good. Yeah, if y'all aren't familiar with this, let me show it to you. Let me share the screen. Okay. If you go to the homepage of the channel, quick little resource for y'all. If you go to the homepage of Reason and Theology, youtube.com/Reason and Theology, you'll see these tabs here. Just go to the playlists tab and you'll see a whole plethora of playlists on all sorts of things. Magisterium, Eastern Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, church history, all kinds of stuff. So go and check those out. and I think you'll find them to be pretty helpful. And in those playlists, there's just a whole bunch of stuff. But you can kind of find something that's of interest to you and just binge, on everything and whatever playlist is of interest to you. Michael skipped the tea versus coffee question. What was the question? You caught my attention with coffee. Say no more. Mike, comment on Pope's background in chemistry. Yeah, I think he has a doctorate in it. So insofar as he speaks on that as an expert, that might carry authority as an expert, but not as Pope, right? Michael killed Father Justin AI like 4 times on a stream. Yeah, that was fun. I can't find the coffee question. You might have to repost that. You had me at coffee. That's hilarious. Michael, the new intro is brilliant. I do miss the Ancient Aliens endings. Always makes me laugh. Do I still have that on here? I was going to see. I have it. I'll play it for you here in a moment. Just for you. Just for you. Okay. Michael Knowles, Michael Lofton are based. We need to do a show together. I did post in the comment section on Michael Knowles' video that he's welcome to come on my show, and I appreciated his video. Maybe y'all can go to that comment in his comment section and say that you agree that he needs to come on my show. I'd love to interview him. Love to talk to him. So let's make that happen. Let's go to his comment section, go to my comment, or just comment in general and tell him he needs to be on Michael Lofton's show. We make it happen. Make it happen, Captain. The Josh Dolph, coffee or tea? If you say coffee, why are you wrong? Well, coffee, and I'm definitely not wrong. And I'm a little concerned that you would say tea. The burden of proof is on you to explain why tea over coffee. You see, this is the way it works. The burden of proof is on you because coffee is self-evidently the better choice. So the greater burden of proof is really going to be on you. So I don't have to defend the proposition that coffee is better than tea. It's self-evident. You have to defend the proposition that tea is better than coffee. Just saying. It's the way it works. All right. So it's going to do it. Everybody hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and let me go ahead and play that Ancient Aliens commercial for our commenter who wanted it. God bless.
Is it possible that ancient aliens created other ancient aliens? Ancient alien theorists say yes. But then, is it also possible that ancient aliens created the ancient alien theorists? And are the ancient aliens and ancient alien theorists led by the Vatican, headed by the Pope? Ancient alien theorists and certain unnamed Catholic YouTubers say yes. Tired of Catholic shows that peddle conspiracy theories that sound like something out of an Ancient Aliens episode? Check out Reason and Theology for a more reasonable take.